I welcome you again on this fascinating journey of research. This is the second video of the second chapter, sampling. In this video, we'll discuss about sampling terminology. This is our lesson plan for the upcoming videos. So what is sampling terminology? To start with, the major question that motivates sampling in the first place is who do you want to generalize to? So from this question, we take the first step towards sampling. And it all boils down to this simple statement of knowing your population. In the simplest form, the group which you are interested to generalize to is called your population. So population is basically a group where a researcher wishes to generalize his findings. So let's imagine that you want to generalize to urban homeless males between the age bracket of 30 and 50 years in the US. So how you are going to do that? You are likely to have a hard time developing a reasonable sampling plan. Issues which you are most likely to face is you are probably not going to find any accurate listing of this population where you could find, or even if you did, you would almost certainly not be able to mount a national sample across hundreds of urban areas. So this is the question of practicality. So you just are very clear about your variables, urban homeless males between the age of 30 and 50 in the United States. But to make sure that everyone belonging to this category, you are able to, so this is how you define it. That is something, this is the right time to actually make a distinction between what is called a theoretical population and what is called an accessible population. So when you talk about theoretical population, it is simply sticking with the fact which says urban homeless males between the age of 30 and 50 in the United States. So it's about any part of United States. So but then there are hundreds of districts. So how you are going to cover those people, urban locality people? Yes, you have to limit yourself to several districts, and that is how you arrive at an accessible population. So from theoretical population to accessible population. So you say that homeless males between the age of 30 and 50 in the 6 selected urban areas across the United States. So by studying on these 6 urban areas, you would try to generalize back to this theoretical population. So accessible population is actually part of your theoretical population. And if you could follow, the whole sampling model goes like this. You first have your theoretical population, and the question at this level is who do you want to generalize to? So this is the first question. Who do you want to generalize to? This study is about whom, and then in the general context, whom do you want to generalize to? But due to practical considerations, you cannot, it would be difficult actually to conduct a study ensuring every single participants belonging to your defined category. So you actually do not cover everyone in the urban area, the example which we took. Rather, we derive this question, what population can you get access to? So who is accessible to us? That constitutes the study population. So accessible population, this is theoretical population, this is accessible population. And from accessible population, even if you have an access to people, doesn't guarantee that you are going to have you will find it easy to contact them all. So how can you get access to them? This is equally important question. You now know that which all people to include, but you do not know what are the ways, how can you actually get them. So this is the question of the next level, which is sampling frame. And from sampling frame, finally to this aspect, that who is in your study, so that is arriving at the sample. So sampling model begins with a theoretical population and ends with sample. It passes through from theoretical sample to accessible population. So theoretical population to accessible population, then to your sampling frame, and then to your sample. So it's a 4-stage process, as you could see. So what is a sampling frame? Sampling frame is basically a listing of all the accessible population from which you will draw your sample. So in earlier times, people used to have landline phones. Still landline phones are there for official purpose, but in earlier days, when it was not, when this mobile revolution was not there, people, there used to be telephone books where you could access, you could find different the name and numbers of different people belonging to, let's say, an urban locality. So if you are using one such telephone book as a way to contact those people, so then that phone book would be your sampling frame. So just to say, in modern times, you could have a variety of ways to choose this sampling frame. You could you could connect people on social media, social networking platforms, or you could you could find some grounds that how you will do this listing, where you have to have some kind of list. Suppose it's about some employees working in a company, so how would you get that list? That is your sampling frame. So accessible population, yes, they are accessible, but still the thing is not clear until you arrive at sampling frame. So it is important to define, to have this sampling frame at place, and from that sampling frame you could use some methods to finally select those individuals who would be part of your study. Understand, I am not saying that sample was the group of people who are actually in your study. You may not be able to contact or recruit all the peoples you actually sample, or there could be even some dropouts over the course of study. Finally, you say, you mean what is your sample is actually the people who complete in your study, who is actually the subsample of your sample, and it does not include non-respondents or dropouts. So you tend to include people in your study, but there are non-respondents that also. So you have to you do not have to take those responses from people who are, let's say, who do belong to this age criteria of 30 to 50, but they have their homes, so definitely they are non-respondents. Or maybe you are interested in only males, so if any female is or the opposite gender is filling your form, then it is no point taking responses from them. So this is something which we have to follow. So it's sampling is not that easy thing. Now you are more likely to appreciate that sampling is a difficult multi-step process, and there are chances to go wrong in many places. Even if you are able to identify perfectly the population of interest, you may not have an access to it. So accessible population becomes difficult. Even if you have an accessible population, you may not have complete and accurate enumeration because of there are some the sampling methods like random sampling or stratified random sampling or systematic sampling, which we will cover in the upcoming videos. Those things are simply not possible until you have a complete sampling frame. So that could come in between your way of study. So sampling frame. So even if you have your sampling frame, you may not draw the sample correctly. So maybe sampling frame still has some noise, some pattern and noise. Things are like that in this only. So you may not draw the sample correctly, or even if you do, the participants may not be willing to fill your survey or may not be there to stay back till you complete your study. So these are the issues in sampling. So with acknowledging that sampling is a difficult business, let me quote Professor Donald Campbell: "Cousins to the amoeba, it's amazing that we know anything at all." Thank you very much and keep watching.